Again, welcome to the nationwide prayer campaign to end abortion forever. Sorry about the audio. Today we have Maggie Sori, and she's going to be speaking on voting and the right to life. And I'll give you a brief bio. Maggie Sori has been observing cultural developments involving the right to life and religious liberty from a critical vantage point. Her family left Cuba in 1960 when it had already become a totalitarian state, atheist, military, communist police state with a Castro dynasty controlling everything. A couple of years after arriving in the U.S., her father, who had experience in the Shell Oil Company in Cuba, got a job with an international corporation. The family moved often, so by the time she was 14 and a half, she had lived in 4 countries and 5 states and had attended 11 different schools, 2 of them bilingual. Those were in Venezuela and Guatemala. She graduated from St. Joseph's High School in West New York, New Jersey, then attended St. Peter's University in Jersey City. She did graduate studies and research in polymer chemistry to receive a doctorate from the Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey, across the Hudson River from Lower Manhattan. It was in Stevens Tech that she met her husband-to-be. They married in 1984, and he finished medical school. Now they have 2 sons currently living in New Jersey, and she's very much part of the pro-life movement. Thank you for coming, Maggie.
You're welcome. Yes, I'd like to get started. I have a PowerPoint presentation, and I'd like to get to a lot of questions having to do with voting and the right to life. Okay, can we go to the next slide?
Yes.
And this is up to date for 2020. There are many issues people think about when they're going to vote. They think of international relations, healthcare, national emergencies, race, economics, education, social justice, and many people of faith say these issues outweigh the issue of the right to life. Why would they say that? Well, many people rely on the mainstream media for their information. The mainstream media choose what to report and not to report, and they do that on their own terms. They use the terms news framing and narrative for what they do. The mainstream media is basically a pro-abortion monoculture. That's what they present, and it comes through. How the mainstream media reports on abortion, well, they don't do it that often, but they use the terms for abortion that are a woman's right to choose, reproductive rights, women's health care, and choice. They don't often call it abortion, but usually it's these nice terms. They do not mention what the choice actually is and the gruesome reality of the chemical and surgical abortions. In fact, I highly recommend that you watch the movie Unplanned or read the book with the author Abby Johnson, and that tells you a lot about abortions and Planned Parenthood and its part in it. I'd like to give you an example of what the mainstream media didn't report. In the current legislative session right now, Nancy Pelosi and the House leadership blocked a vote on the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. They did that 75 times. How can anyone defend not giving aid to a newborn who survived abortion? They can't defend that. But the mainstream media is not going to confront these politicians with the question, and they're going to sidestep it. They know how to be slippery, politicians themselves, and they'll talk about something else and say, you know, it's a woman's right to choose. So I'd like to go into 8 questions that have to do with the right to life issue. These are questions that people may bring up. First question, why should the right to life be seen as an important issue? Well, the right to life precedes all other rights. From 1973 to 2014, there were approximately 60 million deaths from legal abortions in the United States. Now, to get a perspective on that, that is 50 times the approximately 1,200,000 American troops that died in all U.S. wars combined. So here, 50 times greater than that. That's the number of abortions up to 2014. Abortion is the greatest social, racial, and ethnic injustice today. And I really mean racial and ethnic. 79% of Planned Parenthood's surgical abortion centers are within walking distance of minority neighborhoods. Planned Parenthood was founded by Margaret Sanger and eugenicists with a hidden agenda of reducing the population of racial and ethnic minorities and individuals that are seen as physically and mentally unfit. And I'd like to refer you to Pastor Reverend Childress and his website, Black Genocide, and there you can find links to the history of Planned Parenthood and what they're doing. So another important question is, how important is the right to life in comparison to other issues? Well, the right to life affects healthcare, laws, government policies, and the way taxpayer dollars are spent at all levels, that is, state, national, and even international. Erosion of the right to life leads to erosion of human rights, disability rights, conscience rights, and religious liberty. State politicians made the right to life an issue last year, 2019. In New York, Illinois, Vermont, and Virginia, the legislators enacted laws to repeal restrictions on abortions, making abortion legal up to birth, just like what has been going on in New Jersey. Most people here don't know it, but abortion is legal in New Jersey up to birth. So last year, when Governor Cuomo signed the bill in New York, he ordered the top of the Empire State Building to be lit in pink to celebrate. And there were people present at the signing ceremony, and a lot of Planned Parenthood personnel, and we're all cheering and clapping. Abortion is not to be celebrated. Now here's the issue in 2020, today. Many candidates for the U.S. House and Senate, plus all Democrats who ran for president in the primaries, support abortion. They call it health care and a woman's right to choose. What that choice is and does is never mentioned. The national party platforms do address the right to life or choice issue, depending on what party you look at. If you look at the Republican Party platform, they could refer to it as the right to life. If you look at the Democrat Party platform, they could refer to it as choice. The erosion of the right to life leads to erosion of religious liberty and conscience rights. And here's an example that goes to the Obamacare's HHS mandate. The Obama administration required employers to provide health insurance coverage for potential abortion-inducing devices and drugs. That was part of Obamacare. The penalty for noncompliance was $100 per day per employee. Years of litigation over the mandate followed. Many large corporations were given an exemption right away, but faith-based employers were not. Many of them sued. Maybe you remember Hobby Lobby as one of them. Well, the Little Sisters of the Poor had to sue as well. They are nuns who are here in New Jersey and in other states and also in Washington, D.C., and they take care of elderly poor people who have nowhere else to live. They employ a few people. They don't want to have to provide health insurance that covers abortion-inducing drugs. So they sued, they lost, and they appealed all the way to the Supreme Court and won. That's an incorrect date. They won in 2017. Then after that, the Trump administration issued a new rule permitting an exemption based on religious liberty. But there was more litigation. Then the state governments of California and Pennsylvania sued the federal government to eliminate the exemption for the Little Sisters of the Poor, who lost. They appealed again and had to continue appealing all the way to the Supreme Court. And this month, July 2020, they won. But that's not the end. A future administration can eliminate the exemption And candidate Joe Biden has already said he would end the new rule. Another question on this matter, is it true that tax dollars have gone to pay for abortions? Yes, it is true, although the Hyde Amendment restricts federal funding of abortion through Medicaid. Joe Biden and many candidates for the House and Senate say they will work to drop the Hyde Amendment permanently and end other restrictions on federal funding of abortion. Planned Parenthood gets federal funding. Supposedly it's for non-abortion services. The funds are fungible. The money can be used for staff salaries, office equipment outreach, which is actually marketing for them, and that keeps their abortion centers operating. Now there is a Title X provision under which they receive money, and the Trump administration issued a rule where the money that they would receive at any organization providing family planning services would receive has to be kept separate from abortion services and referrals. Planned Parenthood decided to forego a lot of money, $60 million, and they say this whole rule is very unfair. But that particular rule can be rescinded by a future administration, so we have to be very careful about that, and our vote will influence what happens. Now, Planned Parenthood's yearly financial statements show abortion is its primary service. They say they're providing all kinds of services for women, but services other than abortion have been decreasing over years. Planned Parenthood's public statements say it's all about women's health care, but that's misleading. In 2017, Planned Parenthood spent $40 million for public policy and more than $175 million for related activities. I would say propaganda. So let's follow the money a little more. The Planned Parenthood Action Fund is a political action committee. It contributes money to candidates who support a woman's right to choose reproductive rights. The candidates it helps to elect ensure more taxpayer money is awarded to Planned Parenthood in return. Planned Parenthood received well over $500 million in state and federal government grants and reimbursements in the 2016-2017 fiscal year. So they're very much interested in elections. They're putting in money and they expect to get back even more. The taxpayer funding of abortion has also gone around the world. Federal funds have gone to international Planned Parenthood and other abortion-providing non-government organizations. The Obama administration also funded the UN Population Fund, which has coercively pushed abortions in African countries and India. And the UN Population Fund had worked with China in its one-child policy, which was enforced with mandatory abortions and sterilizations. Now, what's interesting is that the Reagan administration had stopped U.S. funding of the UN Population Fund, and that halt continued until Obama became president, and it resumed. President Trump has stopped it again. A fourth question to consider with the right to life issue. Should people who are personally opposed to abortion refrain from imposing their morality on others? Well, I'd like to answer that question with some more questions. Should pro-abortion activists, judges, and elected officials impose taxpayer funding of abortion on everyone, even those of us who are against it? Should they impose laws and mandates that deny the religious liberty of employers, including the Little Sisters of the Poor? And a related question, are anti-abortion people extremists? Well, that's how the mainstream media and Planned Parenthood and so many describe pro-life people. They call them anti-abortion extremists. But the extremists are actually the pro-abortion activists in power who have tried to eliminate religious liberty and conscience rights. To defend those rights requires going to court, and that's expensive and it's a risky option. For example, in New Jersey a few years back, a group of nurses in University Hospital in New York were reassigned to a different department and were ordered to assist in abortions or lose their jobs. Now, these nurses wanted no part of that. And they expressed that to the administration, but they were told, do this or lose your jobs. So they got a lawyer to try to see if the hospital would respect their rights, and it didn't. They ended up having to sue, and fortunately they won because the law is on their side. But we know that laws can change, and it all depends on who we elect. So our votes are important. If more pro-abortion politicians are elected, we will have more erosion of the right to life and conscience rights. We will have more pro-abortion judges appointed to high-level courts. People seeking to defend conscience rights and religious liberty will be more likely to lose in court. We will have more taxpayer dollars to go to Planned Parenthoods, abortion providers, locally and worldwide. Another question with the right to life. Will the horror and deaths of women in illegal back alley abortions return if abortion becomes illegal again? Well, the large numbers of women's deaths reported for illegal abortions before 1973 were fabricated for the purpose of overturning laws and banning abortions. How do we know the numbers were fabricated? Well, Dr. Bernard Nathanson, the abortionist who co-founded NARAL, the National Abortion Rights League, confessed this after he became pro-life. He made the video titled The Silent Scream. Now, he was an abortionist, a doctor, and when ultrasound equipment became available and he started using it when doing abortions, he got to see what was going on inside the woman's womb, how the baby, in one case it looked like the baby was screaming. There was also a struggle to try to get away from the instruments of abortion. This really got to his heart. He changed and became pro-life. So the horror of legal abortions is not reported by the mainstream media. What chemical and surgical abortions do is this. They destroy the babies of the womb, yes, and they risk the physical and emotional health of mothers. They put mothers' lives at risk. Chemical abortions can cause hemorrhaging, severe hemorrhaging, and toxic shock syndrome. Late-term surgical abortions can come with complications, including severe bleeding from a perforated uterus, other perforated organs, arteries, and also severe infections. What is not widely reported is this. Every year, serious complications and maternal deaths occur from legal, surgical, and chemical abortions. Many states place few regulations and reporting requirements on abortion centers. Critical health deficiencies are common. Over 200 abortion centers were found to be unsafe in 2016. This included 39 Planned Parenthood facilities in 15 states. And that's what we know from that year. Because of few reporting requirements, the number must be much greater. So we have a need to also for post-abortion healing for women and men. The wounds from abortion, the emotional wounds, include self-destructive behaviors. They lead to depression and substance abuse. So we have churches and religious organizations that provide post-abortion healing programs, and Rachel's Vineyard with Catholic Church is a great resource, and I highly recommend it if you know anyone who's been involved with abortion directly or indirectly, maybe telling somebody to get one. That healing is really necessary. Now, a sixth question. How does the right to life issue compare with the COVID-19 pandemic and the response to it? Well, elected officials have worked to ensure that medical supplies and help are available to save lives, and that's great. That's wonderful. But many elected officials have been inconsistent. They have supported legal abortions, and which have brought tens of millions of deaths. Again, I repeat, 50 times the number of deaths of American troops in all U.S. wars combined. So it's very inconsistent that they would want to help save lives in this pandemic, but they're okay with abortion. And also, this is what pro-abortion governors did during the pandemic. First, they issued orders to suspend all non-emergency medical procedures except for abortions. So even hernia surgeries, they were out, but abortions went on. Meantime, nursing homes and hospitals faced a shortage of personal protective equipment and healthcare workers. Second matter, the governors of New York, Andrew Cuomo, New Jersey, that's Phil Murphy, and Pennsylvania, that's Tom Wolf, and California, with Gavin Newsom, all Democrats, they had their administrations issue orders mandating that all nursing homes and long-term care facilities admit COVID-19 patients and readmit recovering COVID-19 patients who were released from hospitals. Meantime, visitors were not allowed. Maybe they had a loved one who was dying, they could not visit. The sacraments were being denied to people in these facilities. Now, some managers of the facilities in New York openly objected once that order from Governor Cuomo came out. But Governor Cuomo said they don't have the right to object. That is the rule, that is the regulation, and they have to comply with that. So the result was the number of deaths from COVID-19 in nursing homes became alarmingly high in these states. There was a response to the high number of deaths in nursing homes. Relatives of the dead in New Jersey threatened to sue. Governor Murphy modified the policy 2 weeks later. Then COVID-19 patients were sent only to nursing homes with infection control capabilities, and that's what was recommended by the CDC. Governor Cuomo did not modify New York's order for almost 6 weeks. Nursing homes in New York City were overwhelmed with COVID-19 patients, while many hospital beds remained empty in the temporary field hospitals, the Jacob Javits Center, and the USNS Comfort, the ship that actually was modified so it could take some COVID-19 patients. So here we have Governor Cuomo, this major disaster. There was a tremendous waste of money in the state of New York, millions of dollars unaccounted for, and the mainstream media praises him as the one person who knew what to do during the pandemic. I'd like to treat another question, and that is, since babies in the womb have a right to life, what should we do? This is where we can do something very positive. We can help build a culture of life. We can support local pregnancy resource centers. We can encourage adoptions and work for laws in our states to make adoption easier. We can connect with pro-life groups and see how their efforts are working in with all this. And we need to affirm life, marriage, and families instead of accepting a contraceptive mentality that leads to a demand for abortions when contraceptives fail, and they do. Now, if you want activism, there's more that you can do. You can support pro-life efforts to change laws. You can oppose taxpayer funding of abortion. Work to replace the anything goes sex-positive sex education in local schools, and there's a lot of that in our high schools. Planned Parenthood issues a comprehensive sexuality education program that promotes risky sexual behaviors to children and teens. And meantime, its clinic makes money from STD testing, contraceptives which fail, and abortions. So they have a hand in this, and they expect money. One final question. What about voting now that we have an election coming up? Who we vote for can make a difference in protecting innocent lives. This is what we should look at. First, the party's platforms. Second, how the candidates stand on the right to life. If the candidate is an incumbent, we can look at the record. And third, we have to see what candidates the pro-abortion political action committees, the PACs, are endorsing and funding. So maybe you might want to take a screenshot of this, the party's platforms. A platform might merely proclaim support for choice and reproductive freedom and women's health care. Those are all code words for abortion. I recommend that we look at the party platforms, a comparison, and we can get that from the Priests for Life website, priestsforlife.org. Also, for a comparison of presidential candidates, go to the National Right to Life PAC website, and that's an important one. They had they had a one-page item on their website, and it gave you all the candidates that were running in the primaries, and then they're going to be doing that with the 2 candidates that we're going to have in November. Second thing, how do candidates stand on the right to life? Again, I recommend you take a screenshot of this. For information and endorsements from right to life organizations, there are things you can do. You can go to the National Right to Life. You can go to your state's Right to Life organization, and in New Jersey, we have a New Jersey Right to Life. And here's a good one, the iVoter Guide. This is kind of new. I was very pleased to see that they included a lot of the candidates in the primaries. And they provide questions directly to the candidates. The candidates answer the questions, and their answers appear on their website on this iVoter Guide. And most of their questions have to do with the right to life. Another thing, and this I've done, look at pro-abortion PACs to see who they endorse. Whoever they endorse, vote for their opponents. That's my recommendation. So you can take a screenshot of this. There's the Planned Parenthood Action Fund. You can see who they endorsed. There is the NARAL Pro-Choice America. That's the National Abortion Rights League, and they endorse candidates. When they endorse, they also give money. There's Emily's List. They support women who are pro-abortion. There's the Now PAC, again, supporting women who support abortion. And for the state level in New Jersey, there's Pam's List. And for that, you have to go to Facebook and type in endorsements and see what comes up. So why should we oppose pro-abortion candidates? Well, if elected, the candidates endorsed by pro-abortion PACs will advance the interests of Planned Parenthood and abortion providers with a heavy cost in innocent lives and taxpayer dollars. It is best not to vote for them, even if their opponents are not even clearly pro-life. At least the opponents may be responsive to pro-life constituents and what they support. So we need to be well informed. The mainstream media is biased and politically driven. Their news relies on what they call narratives, and they favor abortion and its supporters in entertainment, politics, and government. They ignore the gruesome reality of abortion. They overlook the serious liabilities of pro-abortion politicians. They don't ask them any questions that are tough. They don't examine the records. But then they go and depict pro-life counterparts as dangerous failures to absolutely oppose. News sources that support abortion and or pro-abortion politicians, well, the mainstream media, the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, CNN, MSNBC, and so on, the 60 Minutes program, and most likely your local newspaper. And in this area, that would be the Record, the Bergen Record, and so on. It's best not to buy them and not to subscribe to them. You're not going to miss them. You can still get the news. Now, on this right to life issue that's so important, we need to look at reliable news sources, and I recommend Life News, Life Site News, the National Catholic Register. Make sure you don't go to the National Catholic Reporter, though, because they have writers there who served the pro-Obama administration, and they tend to support whatever. They'll go along with abortion. So maybe you want a screenshot of this. EWTN, the Eternal Word Television Network, was founded by Mother Angelica, and they have news programs. There's Live Action, founded by Lila Rose. There's the National Right to Life, and there is the the National Right to Life, and there's the New Jersey Right to Life, and they post news items there, and they go more into detail that you're not going to pick up in your local papers. Now, in conclusion, we need to participate in elections and vote wisely to protect innocent human lives. conscience rights and religious liberty. Our votes can do that. We must never support policies to fix social ills by accepting the intrinsic evil of abortion. Yes, abortion is an intrinsic evil. It's not a social ill, it's an intrinsic evil. A vote for a pro-abortion candidate is a vote for the intrinsic evil of abortion.
Thank you for that presentation. That was beautiful. I mean, like, right now, we need people to be activated. And right now, it's, if you're pro-life, it's not only enough to have that faith in God, it's time to be activists. And I vote for all of you to be activists because the Holy Spirit is activated in you. So let's work for life. Remember, backwards, life is evil. EVIL is the backward spelling of life. We need to fight for life. We need to do this. Remember, people have titles, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they fit into those titles. Like some people who are running say they're Catholic, but they're so pro-abortion. I'm telling you, on a scale of 1 to 10, they go all the way up to 10, and they promise abortion it would be really available, and you know what I'm talking about.
Paid for by taxpayers.
Us. So that means that we would be part of that sin. I mean, we have been. We need to eliminate this completely. And, there are repercussions, and you're seeing it. I mean, like, you came from Cuba, and you saw the beginnings of what happened to the country.
Yes, it's sad to say. I found out from my mother many, many years after we left Cuba that abortion was legal even before the time of Castro. It was legal there. We need an environment that respects life, that supports life, especially of the most vulnerable people around us. And those are the babies in the womb, and also maybe disabled people and the elderly.
Yes. Yes, life all around. What could happen? We're seeing like the beginning stages before, socialism.
Well, that definitely is going on. People are saying, "Oh, our current system is failing us," and so on. We have to have hope. Our current system is good because we do have the rights that we have to apply, and if we're
But it could be taken away.
Yes, if we slide into Marxism, that's it for our rights.
Yes. So let's go out there and vote. Let's pray a lot and do what we have to do to make God win. God bless you all, and see you tomorrow, and bring other people to pray. That's what's our strength. God bless you all. Love you all.